So my question is, if I want to have a fish business, let's say I'm interested in fish, so is it that I can actually also go to the river or to the nearest river, and then I'll just take the fish there, and then I'll start my fish pond home, and I'll start my business, or it's supposed to be a certain breed?
Mostly, I think the most common one actually is called tilapia. Now tilapia, and that is the one that is currently available here in Zimbabwe. So you can get it at large numbers, because I mean some. Hello, welcome to VetFood channel. Today we are going to watch the second chapter of the finance webinar, where we are going to look at how to invest profitably in animal husbandry. So if you are interested in knowing much about animal husbandry, please get ready to watch the full episode of it. So the first thing that I wanted us to look at is, of course, we have different types of animal husbandry. Like mostly when people, especially people who are abroad, when we have capital, we tend to venture or to look for easier and better opportunities, especially to the land of Zimbabwe, where we are saying, okay, now I have money, and maybe we can start to say, okay, we have land, or maybe we have these available resources. So the first one is, I just wanted to share with you some of the actually most common husbandry fields that are quite common in Zimbabwe. That is, the first one is dairy farm, and followed by piggery and poultry farming. Then also we have sheep and goat farming. Then also fish farming. Of course, we have other different fields or sectors that people can venture into, but as time goes on, or as we are going, I'm also going to mention why I have chosen these ones and why they can also have an impact. But before we go further, or before we take a look into animal husbandry, this one is quite tricky, because you can put your money and it might just go slowly, by mostly mortality rate having increased, and you can have really quite significant losses. You get to see a lot of, especially a lot of politicians, a lot of business guys in Zimbabwe. They have farms, but you get to see that those farms, there's nothing that is coming out, or maybe they have some lower inputs that are coming out. So I want us to start with just a basic principle of entrepreneurship that is answered by the word smart. I think a lot of people who have done entrepreneurship are quite knowledgeable and are quite aware of this. But also, before I go on to look at this smart factor, I kind of like the fact that mostly now African countries are now realizing that decolonization process really needs a greater impact to be looked at. So you get to see that there are many NGOs that are actually supporting this program. So when I just heard of you talking about this, I was quite surprised. In Africa now, actually, there's also this one guy called Tony Elemelu. You know, he offers sometimes he offers those funds for people who want to start agriculture businesses. If you go on internet, sometimes you get to see that there are some websites, for example, Youth Opportunities in Africa, Youth Opportunities Corners, for example, those ones. You get to see that they have those grants. They call it grants, especially for developing countries, like even Africa. So for me, I think it would be better to share also this. Last time, I think 2 years ago, I applied for this so-called Tony Elemelu Foundation program, and unfortunately, I didn't get it because my my business plan was not quite at an expected level, because I lacked the financial balancing aspect. So those are some of the things that are quite important, especially when we are thinking of starting this business, that we can, even without your money, you can even get a help or funds from these non-government organizations that are trying to help Africans sustain themselves. So Then we look at this individual entrepreneurship aspect. So this one, I kind of like it because when we follow this, mostly we don't get wrong. Number one, S standing for specific. Number two, M standing for measurable. A, attainable. R, relevant and timely. So how does this connect to our daily basis, maybe daily life as an entrepreneur? So mostly you have an idea. All the things start with an idea. For example, I shown you some of the fields that you can venture into animal husbandry previously. So now we have to look if the goal is tangible, and maybe if people in the surrounding environment have a know-how on that information. Because the interesting part of Zimbabwe is that Zimbabwean people, or us Zimbabweans, we have this tendency of trending, of following the trending things. So like previously the Chihuahua issue came, and people just started following that one. So mostly we tend to follow the idea without going to the deeper aspect of it. So that's when you get to see that if you don't follow this aspect, especially this specific measurable, like now with my capacity, am I able to attain this? And also attainable. Okay, with this period of time I am abroad, am I able to cater for this? And also relevant, like for example, goat farming. If you do goat farming in Zimbabwe, it might not be very productive, and mostly, especially people who are doing it now, they're selling an idea. If I've done it previously, they're selling an idea because, for example, just a short example of this boer goat that Hopewell is breeding, you get to see that just individual is very expensive, and people buy it, and after they buy it, they say the meat it has a lot of kgs and the likes, but who is buying goats in Zimbabwe? So those things mostly get to affect people who are maybe the last guys, but those ones who have an idea, they get to lose a lot. And they get to win a lot, but these guys, they get to lose a lot. Then we move on to the factors that determines the field of interest. So as I said, first and foremost, I think just as most of us have graduated, most of us are students, we spend 4 years studying. So this is also something that I realized that it needs to be done, especially when you are focusing on animal husbandry. Get knowledge. We need to get knowledge and expertise, courses before we even start anything, get courses and the likes. Then after that, now we can move on, because the more we invest into something, especially our time, that is also the more we can get a production, because all the things have been done by other people. So it's now a matter of just getting the information, and we put it into our own benefit. So and this knowledge and expertise also adds up to things like market demand, initial capital investment, and available resources that you have, because some of them, they can also help us to do it. For example, if you are close to a dam, or maybe if you own a dam, or if you own maybe a swimming pool that is not already in use, then you can know that definitely without having much expenses, I can do a fish project. Then so as I'm looking at this one, I think I've just divided them into two. Number one, of course, we are thinking of intensive farming. That is, we want to get money. So there's number one, long-term and a short-term investment. And for dairy farming, mostly we call it a long-term investment, that you don't expect a profit in 2 years or 3 years. And also what gives you profit is the quantity. Mostly in animal production, what gives you profit more is quantity. And quality too, but quantity really matters. That's why you see that people in Zimbabwe who do broilers, for example, 100 broilers or 50 broilers, sometimes they make profits, but the profits are $25, and just when you make a mistake of delaying when you make a mistake of delaying your poultry in the poultry house, then that profit is all gone. So those things are actually some of the things that needs to be considered. So for this one, it has benefits, of course, of having a steady income. Once you just manage to have more, maybe at least starting with 10, those are maybe, for example, those milking dairy for dairy farming, then of course there is at least an expected profit that you can make. Then for piggery, this one actually I think Zimbabwe have a benefit because we don't have this religious aspect that other countries have of religion, that other people they don't get to say they don't eat pigs and the likes. I think Zimbabweans like pigs so much and it goes very fast. So those are some of the things that can be done, but we need to consider this environmental and health sector. Because they smell sometimes, and so you need to if you have a land and that is also a bit far away from other people, then you can venture into this one, and it has an advantage that even after 7 months you can start to have offsprings and you can multiply your project very fast. Then sorry. All right, then I move on to poultry farming. Poultry farming, I think last time I once talked about this at a certain event, and I just mentioned about a thing called stress that is killing a lot of people, especially in Zimbabwe, especially in poultry. You start your poultry farm, you start your poultry production, but we don't consider about the environment or about how you're managing your poultry to an extent that sometimes they don't grow because maybe of poor feeding. Sometimes they just don't even grow because of the stress that is being exposed there. Sometimes you change the water, you change the bedding unexpectedly. So some of those handling abilities, when they lack mostly, you won't get something that is profitable. So it's my advice that especially guys, maybe, you know, you have just received your stipend. Before investing, it's better you have the knowledge, and it's better if you're going to send someone, if you're going to give someone to do that, then I suggest that you teach that person or you send that person for a lecture, then the person get the knowledge. Then lastly, I think I finished with the fish farming project, and this one actually is quite trending now in Zimbabwe because a lot of people are doing it, and the government has actually informed or maybe mandated the schools to do that because the protein source is actually insufficient in Zimbabwe. So those are some of the things that people need to consider. But most importantly, I think we should be able to calculate the risk, and also we should be able to gauge our capital, and those things that people like accountants is something that I think we should really consider. You know, people with their expertise, we should use them in accordance, because when you just do something without the knowledge of how is it done, especially business plan, starting from this project, mostly it ends up having a problem. You don't see it at the beginning, but at the end is you just lose your money. So those are some of the things that I think we need to consider. And unfortunately, I think I don't have much time, and I'm sorry for if I've used much time for you, but I really wish you all well, and I hope your businesses would go very well. Thank you so much.
Do you have the links to the foundations, the ones that offer for agriculture, my grants? And what are the requirements for a grant? Is it just a good option, a good, you know, presentation that you're going to present your material and then they just accept you? Or you need to have proof of like my bank statements and assets that you have. Number 3 is what are your chances of getting this grant? Do you have to be a big company, or you can just go as a single person? Because it's for youth, you know, you said it's for youth. I don't think there's any youth who has like a big company to their name. So first question, the links to the foundations that give grants, what are the requirements, and what are the chances of getting the grants?
Answering the first question about the grants, I think I'll just combine it in this way. The links, as I said, mostly the grants they get opened and they get closed. Mostly that's what happens. So as I said, there's this website up for the weather, like most alleged websites, like for example, the one I said, Youth Opportunities Corner and Youth Opportunities for Africa. I think maybe if I'll also send the link so that maybe you can also get them. Those ones are quite mostly African based, like for those big companies, and they who are trying to help young entrepreneurs. But also in Zimbabwe, especially for agriculture farming, there is this contract-based farming that is done, but that one requires a large capital because, for example, even Ivans do that. Ivins, Qualcomm do that. Sometimes you have a lump sum, maybe generally what people do is they join together, like maybe 5 people, and then they collect the money, because what they need is for Zimbabwe, especially Ivins and Qualcomm, mostly what they need you to be having the structures up to a good expected standard, and also the facilities, for example, electricity and availability of water. But for them, they want numbers. So sometimes I remember sometimes they were talking about, if I'm not mistaken, I think 20,000 or 30 to 40 birds. But that one is quite profitable, because you just manage them, you just manage the batches, and after that they come and collect. So you don't cater for the market. But this one, I was talking about this, like for where mostly they help people who have ideas, but they don't have the money to sustain the businesses. So the greatest requirement they need is a business plan, because they assume that when you have idea and you are not able to construct a business plan towards it, and also especially on the financial aspect, then that means your business plan cannot progress very well. So that is one of the greatest important thing that they had. And mostly, I think, especially on the internet, from Africa, most of them, they get posted sometimes, and they get closed, they get open, they get closed. And when you get that one, when you win that one, I think I also got the one for the Wealth program for young entrepreneurs in Africa. And that one actually, it helped me with the teachings from the beginning on how to manage the projects and up to the end after I graduated. And after that, then you now have to apply again for the grant, showing your capabilities of the project. So those steps are those ones that can also help. So I think I hope I've answered it so well. But the links, if I remember, I think I'll also send the ones that are quite helpful.
So my question is, if I want to have a fish business, let's say I'm interested in fish, so is it that I can actually also go to the river or to the nearest river, and then I'll just take the fish there, and then I'll start my fish pond home, and I'll start my business, or it's supposed to be a certain breed?
So like mostly, I think the most common one actually is called tilapia. Now tilapia, and that is the one that is currently available here in Zimbabwe. So you can get it at large numbers, because I mean some of the fish, of course, is the tilapia breed came from the river, but you want to do it commercially, so it's quite difficult for you, and also it's costly. Time consuming for you to go into the river. But mostly, I think that's all I can say. But also there's another breed called catfish. This one is also upcoming in Zimbabwe. And for example, for me, they actually collected it because the breed was not quite available. So they actually collected it at some time back, but actually we are using those one as breeders. So yeah, other breeds can happen, but for commercial purpose, if you want to do for commercial purpose, you need to get them from the commercial farmers, and those commercial farmers are the ones that are also able to give you the ones that are called sex reversed. So that means you can only get the males, and when they get to the final produce, they will be having the same size. Otherwise, if you don't do so, you'll be having fluctuations of sizes at the end of your produce.
All right. Was your question answered? Thank you so much, Kudzi. Was your question answered, Deacon Care, before we move to Shingi?
Yeah. Thank you. And I would like to ask him also to share his YouTube channel about poultry. It's so good.
All right. Okay.
I hope you found something that was beneficial, and don't forget to subscribe and like and share this quite helpful information. Thank you so much. See you next time.